He knew what she was going to go through. He loved her so much that he was coming to get her so she wouldn't have to go through it. But she asked to come back to pray for me.
For you.
Me. Do you know what? I know that she did not know what she was going to go through. But she loved me enough to come back and pray for me. And it took 12 years. And she suffered so much. And she held on because I wanted to keep her with me.
What's going on, everybody? Hello. Welcome back, people. Today's a special day because we have a special somebody who is our spiritual uncle. And we are very, very, very happy and blessed to have him here in the studio today to share his testimony. Now, this won't be a one-time thing because we have kidnapped him and he will be back. But it's the one and only Pastor Robert Gray. Now he's our uncle, so we should say Uncle Pastor.
Pastor, Uncle Pastor. Hello, friends. How y'all doing? Hi, Uncle.
Well, hi.
Hi.
Now, starting off.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're going to edit this or not, but you said spiritual uncle. You know, there are categories and details.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when Rosetta Wood, my wife, for those of you who are watching, she would have a dress in the closet or several dresses in the closet that she hadn't worn. And she would pull it out on a Sunday or whatever, and she'd put one on, never worn before. And we would get to church and someone would say, Pastor Rosetta, that's a beautiful dress. Is that new? She said, oh, this whole thing? She said, I've had this thing in the closet. And I said, why did you give that detail? She said, what do you mean? I said, they don't know that.
Right.
So when I introduce you two, I would say my nephew
and niece.
My niece.
Yes.
If they want to know details, you can say spiritual.
Okay.
But at this point, I am Uncle Robert.
I wouldn't even say spiritual. Like, listen,
No,
your
like,
blood.
He's like family.
Your blood.
But you know, I put the spiritual because it was spiritually led on God's timing.
Well, that would be the details.
That would be the details. You guys know I'm a little slow, so that would be the detail.
Well,
Okay.
you're also a detail person.
I am a detail person. So that makes sense.
That makes sense
Okay.
for him to.
All right,
I'm the one who'd be like, give you the summary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm.
All right.
It's the creative in me. I can't control.
Yeah, he's a detail person.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's watching this today, this is my nephew. This is my niece.
Let me do it again, yo. This is. Help me welcome my uncle, Robert Gray.
Yay.
All right. Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I am overjoyed and grateful to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I am nervous, but I'm excited
Mm-hmm.
to be here. So thank you both for allowing me to be in your home and being here. So thank you.
Of course.
Again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've been, as you guys know, we've promised, we've been praying on a list of people that, the Lord had put in our hearts to pray about. And the prayer was very simple. Lord, whoever voice you want in your platform, let them say yes. And whoever you don't want, let them say no.
Mm-hmm.
We won't fight it. We're not going to ask why and why not. We just take it as it is because we trust you. So it is a privilege and an honor and a blessing to have your yes and for you to be sitting here in this platform that the Lord has blessed us with or asked us to steward because it ain't ours.
Well, I thank you for saying that. You remember I said it to you a few minutes ago about the fact that when I wake up in the morning, I'll ask the Lord about, okay, who am I to minister to today? And then I said to you a few minutes ago, and I said, at this time in my life, at this moment, to be here on a podcast, to ask the Lord, why now?
Right now.
And I used to do that a lot, but when I still do it now to ask it, but I just said, okay, it's your timing.
Mm-hmm.
That's doing that. So I am honored to be here. So this is the time that he wanted me to hear.
Yeah.
He waited till you all got here to ask me to be a part of this. So I something else I was thinking about.
Yes.
When you were praying,
Mm-hmm.
and this may sound like the craziest request that that someone could ask. And I do this sometimes when I'm privately praying to God. And as you were praying, I thought to myself, okay, Lord, you don't miss anything.
No.
You hear all.
Yeah.
You see all.
Mm-hmm.
So since Rosetta's there with you, could you pull her over there and let her just
Like, come and see this.
Come and see this.
Come here, daughter.
Come and see your boy.
I love it because I'm sure she's watching. I'm sure she's having a blast up there. It was like
she be critiquing me. So anyway, okay, all right. That's
well,
that's
auntie, wherever, don't do that. Right?
Okay.
He's doing his best.
He's doing his best,
yes,
and that's all we ask. That's all we ask.
Okay. All right.
So today we get the privilege of listening to your testimony. And as we always tell people, you start wherever you'd like to start and take your time. And we're all ears. So the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Well, a lot of my testimony, I've already shared some of those things with you both. And as I was thinking about where do I start? And I start, my testimony involves this woman that God blessed me with.
Mm-hmm.
And my life involves around her. But that wasn't where I started. The point was I thought there was somebody else going to be in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't saved. I went to church every Sunday, but nobody talked to me about accepting Christ as my Savior.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was good to go. As my wife said, well, you are a good person, but you're going to hell. And I said, what do you mean? I got baptized, all that stuff. And she had to explain it to me. But I want to start back to the point because of if you don't get anything out of this session, you get the fact of appreciating the power of a woman's love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that stays with me every day is the power of Rosetta Gray's love. This is a woman back, I was 21 years old. She was 17. Some people said I robbed the cradle. I didn't think of me robbing the cradle. That wasn't that much of a distance.
No.
Right.
But anyway, this was this young girl that I knew who she was. I was a sort of a country boy. I weighed 30 pounds soaking wet. I knew this beautiful girl. I knew who she was, but I thought she was totally out of my league.
Mm-hmm.
And besides, I had a girlfriend, and I thought this was going to be my wife. But my brother, Charles, who was in the same class with her, she would send a message to him almost every week or something like that. She said, tell your brother Robert I said hello. And he didn't like her. He thought because she was surrounded by a lot of guys all the time because guys wanted to date her and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought she was a loose woman. That's what he thought. So he didn't want no loose woman
With his
hooking
brother.
up with his brother.
Right.
So he wouldn't tell me half the time, but she wouldn't let it go. Did you tell your brother I said hello? No, we'll tell him I said hello. And then one day I think Charles told her, he said, well, I think he's getting married. No, he said she has a girl. He has a girlfriend. She said, I'm not asking to marry him. I just told you to tell me hello. As he kept telling me this, I kept thinking, why would this girl want for him to tell me hello?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned you before is that when I went in the military and I was in basic training, still thinking that this young lady was the one for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at Jeremiah 29 when God says about having a plan for us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his plan for me wasn't my plan. His plan, and I know now, but then I thought this particular young lady was going to be the woman for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. But he had someone else in mind that I thought was nowhere on my list.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Until I got that Dear John letter in the military. And I knew there was a guy, I'm going to call his name. His name was Tommy.
We're coming for you, Tommy.
Bad Tommy.
I don't know where you are, Tommy, but anyway. So I knew he liked, her name was Catherine. He liked her, and I knew he was after her. But I wasn't too worried about that until I got that letter. The military just letting me know that she thought that since I was in the military and everything, we should slow things up, things like that. And so I didn't accept that until I came home on leave. I didn't have a car, but my cousin carried me to her house. And I expected her to run out the door and, yeah, he's home. And
He's home. They're coming home.
Her mom and dad did.
Right.
But I didn't see
But
her.
you're like, that's not what
She
I...
wasn't there. So I go in the house and her mama said, where's Catherine? She was back in her bedroom. So I sat down. She finally came out, and normally where she would sit down real close to me, she sat over there. I'm thinking, what's wrong with you?
You should be happy to see me.
Yes,
right.
I'm thinking she'd be just hugging and kissing them anyway. So her parents left and went back in there, and finally I said, what is wrong with you? And she said, I don't love you no more.
Ouch.
What? She said, I don't love you no more. And so what did I do? She said, I just don't love you anymore. And she got up and she left back in the room and she started crying. And her mother heard her. And she came in and her mother called me Gray. She said, oh, what's wrong? I said, well, Catherine just said she don't love me no more. She said, what? So she went back in the room there where it was and come out, and she come back to me and she said, I don't know what happened. So I called my cousin. I said, can you come and get me? He said, come and get you. I just dropped you off. I started explaining. But my point is that from there, that was a very painful time for me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things was that there was no intimacy between us because she said that she wanted to wait until she got married. I respected that. That seemed to be one of my downfalls in my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
The girl said I was too slow. I thought I was being a nice guy. They said, well, you're too nice.
Yeah.
I said,
isn't it funny? There's such thing as being too nice as a man.
I thought to me, that's what, okay, anyway, I'm too nice. So I think the breakup hurt me, but the one thing that hurt me the most was about 7 or 8 months later, her cousin told me that she was pregnant.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, all the time I dated her, which was 2 years. And then Tommy
just came in.
Came in and just, anyway, but God was still somewhere, just saying, okay, I got you covered. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that.
Right.
So Rosetta kept sending me messages. Tell Robert Cello, I'm hurting, but this girl won't stop sending messages.
Can we thank God for consistency?
See what he said? He is. He has this plan. I look at where I am now. God starts at the end, then goes back to the beginning and just fills things in.
Fills in the gap.
So he'd already filled this thing in with me and her, and even all the things we went through. Mm-hmm. And then he comes back and gets slow Robert. He gets Robert because, God forgive me if I'm saying and did it, but anyway, Tommy, he allowed Tommy to come in because he knew how I felt about this girl,
Right.
Catherine. So he had to bring Tommy in there to upset the apple or whatever, and kind of that. And so one day, my mom told me that Rosetta would come by the house and pick up my younger sister Lisa and take her to church with her. I thought, I got to talk to this girl finally. But before that, there's a picture that stays in my mind. There's an old movie with Clint Eastwood and I can't remember the lady, and he likes her, the lady in the movie, and he's sitting on the steps of like the Capitol, and they're talking, and he's trying to get her to go out with him, and she won't do it. So she starts to walk away, and he's saying to himself, if she turns around, she's interested. And she keeps walking. He said, come on, turn around. And she gets way off and she turns around. So I'm home and I'm coming from a certain place and I look up and hear this girl that comes over sort of a hidden incline. She has on a pair of green shorts, I'll never forget. And I think, man, that's her. And my heart starts to pound.
There you go.
And I'm thinking in my mouth, what do I say to her? She's getting closer and closer and closer. And get that. And she sees, as we're getting closer, she says, hey, Robert. And I said, hey, her nickname was Pinky. I said, hey, Pinky. And I kept walking. She kept walking. I thought, so I turn around and I stopped and I said, she turns around. She's interested. And she kept walking. I said, come on, Pinky, turn around. She turned around. She kept going. And I know there's a certain point where the sidewalk curves and I can't see her no more. And she's getting closer to that curve. And I said, come on, turn around, please. Turn around, turn around. She don't turn around.
Wow.
She keeps going. And I'm hurt. But Sunday is coming. So
you have hope.
Yes, I got hope. Sunday's coming, and I'm at my mom's house. Lisa and Pinky and her sister are going to church. And it's amazing. I can see that picture of me standing in the doorway waiting for them to come back. Church is over, they come back. She comes to the end of the street. Lisa comes in, and they start to walk. Then I go out. Now, I'm not a guy who has a line, so to speak. I'm not. I don't know how to flirt. I don't know how to flirt.
Right.
I'm thinking, what do I say to this girl? I messed up one time. So I go, I said, Pinky, and she stops. Hey, that's how you doing? I said, and I asked about another girl. You don't do that. You know that.
Rule number one: don't ask the girl about another girl.
And she looked at me. I don't know. And she knows what I was talking about. And I said, well, can I walk you home? No.
Not after you just asked me about another girl, you can't.
Her sister said, yeah, you can walk home. So we walk home. I'm walking in the middle. We get to her house, which is not far. And I said, can I call you? She said, no. Her sister said, yes, you can call me.
Shout out to the sister.
The sister probably knows what's going on.
Shout out to the sister.
So the sister gave me her phone number. And that's what started that. A year later, we were married on Christmas Day. Tony and Michael. Tony was born the next year, November. Michael born 2 years later in October, which started this journey that we learning how to be a husband, learning how to be a father was a tough thing for me because my father was alcoholic. I didn't have anyone to teach me how to be a man, how to be, me being the oldest of 10, being the one and not treated as well. But I knew what I didn't like. I saw my mom and dad fuss and fight all the time about money and things like that. And I saw that and I thought, I can't be that way. I saw a man who didn't know how to treat a woman. He knew how to get babies.
Right.
But he didn't know how precious Mama was.
Didn't know the value.
Well, maybe he knew how precious she was, but he didn't know how to express that. He knew it sexually, of course. But other than that, when he wasn't drinking, he was quiet. I didn't see a conversation between them, not hardly. But when he's drinking, he can't shut up. But he knew one scripture, a part of it. You're supposed to submit to your husband.
Isn't that convenient?
Yep.
He knew that one. He didn't know truly what it means. But my point is that when I got married and started to have a family, trying to learn how to be a good husband and father. Rosetta being saved, and I wrote down this scripture here, 2 Corinthians 6:14. It talks about being unequally yoked together with unbelievers. And I thought about sometimes was, why would God link us together when I wasn't saved and she was? But he saw and knew where I'd be now. He knew and saw where I would be after I got saved. He knew who I needed. I didn't know how much I needed her, but I knew that he knew who I needed.
Right.
And as I would watch her live her life, we would go out to party, we would go to clubs, we would dance. She was my dance partner. And I remember when she called me at work one day and she said, I have rededicated my life to Christ. I said, what does that mean? I smoked cigarettes and I drank beer. And when she would go to grocery store, buy groceries, she was always buying me beer and put it in the refrigerator to make sure it was cool and stuff. And I said, what does that mean? She said, well, I'm not going to be going out to the clubs. I'm not going to be doing all those things. And I said, why? I mean, you can be saved and go out to the club. No, I'm not going to do that. She said, another thing, I'm not going to be buying you any more beer again. I said, dog, you're going to stop doing all this stuff for me, She said, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And that's when I became, as she said, a heathen. I was not physically abusive, but I was aggravating. Because every time most of the time I saw her, she was on the phone talking to another Christian, and they was talking about the Bible and stuff. And that irritated me. We would get in the car going someplace. And I had it on my radio on a certain channel, which was my secular music. And she wanted to put it on the channel with the gospel. And we would fight about that, She said, mine on, she said, well, can you turn that down? I said, well, that's my music. You mean you used to like this music together? Now you don't like this music. And so one day we were going on a vacation to the beach. She had a cassette tape. That's how long ago that was. Okay, y'all. Cassette tape. If you don't know what it was, just ask somebody. But anyway, she had a cassette tape of a preacher preaching about watch them dogs. You ever heard it?
No.
Yeah? Oh, I have to tell you about that sometime, but maybe. Anyway. All right. I kept repeating that message over and over. It was so funny, but it was biblical. It's out of Philippians 3. Yes. When Paul was talking about we are the circumcision, she said, Paul related the habits of people to animals. And he used a certain group of animals to talk about people in the church. But he did it in such a funny way that I laughed, and they would get to the end, and I would say, play it again. Play it again. And I'm realizing how now, as time goes along, how God just pulled me in. He used her to pull me in. We get back from the beach, and Rosetta is talking to me about a dream, a vision that she had. And she says, I had this vision. She said it was real. I said, well, tell me about it. She said, we're laying in bed and you're asleep. I was asleep. And she said, I turned over and I looked up. And she said, I know it was the angel of the Lord coming toward me. And I'm thinking, what is this? She said he gets to a certain point at the end of the bed and he reaches for her. She reaches her hand up. He takes her hand and he pulls her up. And when she gets to a certain point, she turned, she looked at me, and she reached for me. And he said, he can't go because he doesn't belong to me. Wow. And she said, can I go back and pray for him? And he granted her a request. She came back. From that point, it was 12 years before I accepted Christ as my Savior. 12 years.
So she kept praying for 12 years.
She kept praying. She didn't quit. She as I excuse me.
No.
As I think about this all the time. She gave up paradise. She gave up everything to come back and pray for me. Not knowing what she was going to go through. When I accepted Christ, from that day in 1991, it was 28 years later as I watched her health start to decline. And it kept getting worse and worse as year went by. There was things that she finally had to quit work. And as time went by, everybody was praying. I was praying. She was praying. We were praying and declaring God's word for her healing and things like that. And she would have good days and she would have bad ones. But as time went by, it kept getting worse and it kept getting worse and kept getting worse. And I'm going to fast forward here to get to the point where it got to a point to where she started to lose a lot of weight. Her body starts to deteriorate. It just started to shut down. It got to a point where the one thing that attracted me to her were her legs. She had nice legs. That was the first thing I looked at. and it was amazing how she got to a certain point as she started to lose weight. She would say, don't look at my legs. And I said, why? She said, because she was losing all her muscle mass. And I said, your legs are just as gorgeous as they were before. And I said, you are just as gorgeous as you were before. No, I'm not. Right. She said, I don't want you to look at me. She would pull a cover for her face, and I'll pull it back down and I give her a kiss, As her body started to deteriorate, my mind would go back to in those 28 years how we would have a contest of serving each other. She said, I cannot serve you. I said, no, you can't. I cannot serve you. And we would have this competition of serving each other. It was those moments of the hugs. There was those moments of when I wasn't acting right, the moments of how she would hug me. There was moments of when I want to talk to her. You all can do 10 things at one time. We do one thing.
Yep.
We're good at that one thing, to focus on that.
Yep.
You can take care of the kid, you can cook, and do all those things. And I would say, you're not listening to me. And she said, yes, I am listening to you. And she's doing things in the kitchen. I would get so angry. And I said, I want you to listen to me with your eyes. And I would get mad and storm on. And she would come up behind me and smack me in the back of the head. And she said, okay, Robin. She turned me around and she'd get right up to her nose on mine. She said, I'm listening to you with your eyes. And then that would make me even madder. But it was just those things that her love was so powerful for me. It was just the time when she told me about the fact that she would go to a grocery store and she would be talking to the Lord in the car. She said, Lord, can I keep driving? He said, no, go home. I got a plan for him. I got a plan for him. Go home. Keep doing what you're doing. She said she anointed my pillow. She anointed my clothes in the closet. She anointed everything I own. I didn't notice at the time. But anyway, until after I got saved, then she told me about that. But as her health got bad, I think in the last part of She had been in the hospital so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And, now I think I realize one of the reasons that God allowed so much time to go by as she was hurting and deteriorating and so sick that where she could not do things for herself. She could not go to the bathroom by herself. She was embarrassed. She was shamed. And me taking care of her, and me telling her that I don't care what happens. I'm your husband.
Mm-hmm.
I will do everything I can to take care of you. I said, you've always taken care of me. I said, now we didn't plan for this, but we're here right now. And I'll do everything I can. There was time me trying to work, but I've been blessed to have a job where I could leave when I got ready.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there was time to go home. And sometimes she would get up to go to the bathroom and she would fall. She couldn't get herself up. And I would leave her phone right next to her. She'd always keep it with her. And she would call me and apologizing because she had fell and she couldn't get up. And rushing home, but to the point where the weight of her illness was wearing on me.
Wow.
It's the point where I'm walking and I could feel it. I'm walking upright, but I could feel the weight. It was almost like I'm bending over. That weight was so much. So the last time she went in the hospital, I'm thinking in my mind, we've been praying and believing, and she's getting worse. And it hit me. It's time for her to go home. But I'm hanging on to her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fighting for her to stay, but not like this.
Right.
So I remember kneeling next to her hospital bed. And I said, hey, baby girl. I said, I love you, right? And she said, yes. I said, we talked about spending the rest of our life together. I said, we talked about we're going to go in the rapture if it comes, or not, we're going to leave together. And that's what we talked about all the time. And I said, but I don't want to continue this way.
Mm-hmm.
I said, not like this. And I expected her to get upset and say, so you don't want me anymore? But she didn't. She looked at me for a period of time, and I'm so nervous and I'm in tears. And she said, Robert, do you remember what I told you about my jewelry? She loved jewelry. Every year I had to up my game on getting her anniversary and stuff, And I said, no, I don't remember. She said, you remember one time we were talking years ago, and I mentioned that if I go before you take my jewelry and you sell it, and you use the money for yourself. And I said, oh yeah, I remember that. She said, I want you to do that. That was her way of thanking me and saying, thank you for letting me go. And I said, so what do you want to do? She said, I want to go home. I thought she was talking about
home.
Like, I didn't realize till after she passed that she was talking about home.
Mm-hmm.
I called my sons. She asked to see everybody she asked to see came to see her. Yeah, everybody, which gave me a relief that she was set on it's time for me to go. We got hospice in. We went and set the bedroom up with the hospital bed, the whole works. We brought her home on our anniversary is December 25th.
Mm-hmm.
We brought her home on Christmas Eve. She was verbal Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. After that, she would go to sleep. And after that, she would call my name. And I used to tell her, nobody calls me Robert the way she called me Robert. She said, Robert. and she's laying there, her eyes are closed, and all of a sudden she's sleeping. And then she'll say, Robert. And I'll get up and I said, what is it, baby girl? And she said, Robert. And then she would say, promise. And I said, promise what? And she was moving her mouth. Until this day, I don't know what she meant, but I think I do. But she said, promise. Then she would call Tony's name, and she would call Michael's name. Then she would call her father's name, who had been passed away like 30 years ago from that. then she would call her mama's name. And after that, she stopped talking. She closed her eyes, but she was struggling to breathe. Pastor John called on January 4th, and he asked for an elders meeting. I went to this meeting, and I to this day, I don't remember what he talked about, but I couldn't wait to get back home. So before I left, I called Tony, my son, and I asked him, would you stay with your mama while I'm gone? He said, okay. I leaned down, I rubbed her cheek, and I said, baby girl, don't you go nowhere till I come back. Wait for me. And I told Tony to tell her, I said, you keep telling your mama, don't she leave me. He said, okay, Dad, I will. I went to the meeting, and I couldn't wait to get back. You know, Pastor Michael Fowler and the Tracy?
Yes.
Yeah. They came by the house. Tracy asked me, she said, can I go in and just sit with her and play some music? And I said, yeah. She went in the room, bedroom, sat with Rosetta and played some music and prayed. They left. She had brought me a plate. I got up to put the plate in the microwave, and I could hear Rosetta breathing from our kitchen all the way back in the bedroom. I got and I put the plate in the microwave, and I got ready to hit the button, and I stopped, and it was silent. And I turned and I ran back in the bedroom. She was laying there looking straight up. Her eyes were wide open. She was looking up. And I walked over to her and I stroked her cheek and I said, hey, baby girl, what you looking at? And she didn't say anything. She just breathed in real easy. I said, can I see what you see? And I took her hand. I kissed it. I kissed her on the cheek. And she said, and that was it. And I stared at her for so long because she had lost so much weight. Her pulse out of her neck was just so evident. And I kept looking at that spot. And I kept waiting for that pulse to come back. And I don't think I blinked. I stared so long that it looked like there was a feint of a pulse. And I realized it wasn't. So I called the hospice doctor, and they came, and as he was checking her, it took him the longest to tell me that there was no heartbeat. He was trying to make sure, and he told me that she was gone. Jasmine was on her way, and as they got there, I couldn't stay in the room. And I said, what do we do now? He said, well, we're going to bathe her. And we're going to dress her. And Miss Tracy had bought her a brand new pajama outfit that she had never worn. I brought that in and they put that on. We get to the funeral when they was talking about who was going to do the eulogy. I said, I'm going to do the eulogy. Nobody knows her like I do.
Right.
And I did. But when I got home and everybody left, Jasmine went back to school. I was in the house by myself and I was just angry. I'm walking through the house and I'm screaming at God and I'm saying, we prayed and we prayed. She got worse. She got worse. I don't understand this. And I said, and why? And as I learned this about God, is why you're screaming and hollering. He's talking, but he's whispering. And so finally, some of the Spirit said, just shut up, Robert. So I shut up and he says, read Isaiah 57:1, where it says, the righteous die young. They're taken away because of the evilness to come. And I said, what evil? And God spoke to me and said, isn't sickness evil? And then he brought back that vision where he came to get Rosetta.
To prevent her from going through it.
He knew what she was going to go through. He loved her so much that he was coming to get her so she wouldn't have to go through it. But she asked to come back to pray for me.
For you.
For me. Do you know what? I know that she did not know what she was going to go through, but she loved me enough to come back and pray for me. And it took 12 years. And she suffered so much. And she held on because I wanted to keep her with me, even through all that pain. And I can imagine when I let her go, the relief for her. And all I think about now is the power of that love for me. I miss it. When I see you two, I see others together, I watch very closely. I watch how you treat her. I watch how she responds to you. I watch how other couples sometimes don't respond to each other in a nice way. And that bothers me because, especially with the men, that they really don't understand the gift that God has given them.
Yeah.
And I can look into her face and tell who you are as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you have invested in her or not will be reflected in her countenance.
Right. Yeah.
And I look at that. As long as she's smiling, I'm good.
That's right.
Because I know that the way you treat her, the way you take care of her is something that will show. Now, you all can fake it sometimes, but after a while, it gets to a point where you can't.
You can't. Yeah. Yep. You can only do it for so long.
That's exactly right. So I watched that, and I miss that love. I miss that when I look at her pictures. I miss how warm she was with me. How she would. We're in the car driving somewhere. She would grab my hand and kiss it. And when she would kiss my hand, I would laugh. And the first time she did, she said, "Why are you laughing at that?" I said, "It's not that it's funny. It something went all over me when you did that." And I said, and it tickled me. And so she would do it all the time. She would kiss my hand and I would just fall out laughing. And she would enjoy doing it. So I started doing it with her, It's all those little tiny things, She called me boyfriend, She would just, "Hey, boyfriend, I love you." And I always say, "I know." And by the third time, she said, "Why you always say you know?" I said, "Because I know. There's no one on the face of this earth can convince me that you don't love me." I said, that's why I say I know.
You know.
I know. It's like being saved.
That's right.
People say, you're saved. Well, I just know. And, that's it. Right. I know. That's it. And that's the essence of who this woman is to me. Is I'm lonely, but alive. I'm lonely for her company.
Right.
Just to hear the sound of her voice. Sometimes I'll just say, "God, can you just let me hear her say, 'Hey, Robert'?" Just that, So that's where I am.
That's where you are.
That's where I am. I love talking about her. It's amazing. Even now, there are manuals sort of like this here that I still sometimes find them. To where she has written how her day is going, and it always include me of how when I wasn't saved, Lord, I'm praying for Robert. I know you have a plan for him. I want you to speak to Robert. It was just my name is always in all of those. When I wasn't handling money right, she said, "Lord, you got to talk to him now." It's just that's it. But she allowed me to lead until God showed me I wasn't leading correctly. She would, if I'd have listened to her in the early part of our marriage, excuse me, if I'd have listened to her, we got in a lot of debt. And if I'd have listened to her, we never would have been in debt.
Right.
And when I really came to my senses as I got saved and allowed her to sort of help teach me, because there was one incident where when I got saved, I would see her praying and she would talk about what the Lord said. I got jealous. I said, why is the Lord talking to you and he's not talking to me? She said, he is talking to you. I said, I don't hear nothing. She said, well, see, she said, so you listening with this. I said, well, how do you listen with that? She said, it's hard for me to explain it. She said, but this just pray and ask the Lord. Well, I'd heard her pray and I tried to imitate her prayers. She said, Robert, don't try to pray like I pray. Just talk to God yourself. I said, well, how do I talk to him? She said, talk to him like you're talking to me. That don't sound right. Right. All I was around are religious people.
Yeah, we're overthinking it.
Yes, all of that. And I'll tell you this part, just things are popping in my head as I'm talking. Okay. Growing up in the hood, we guys think we know it all. So, especially when it comes to making love, we know it all. We have these conversations out there with the boys about what we did, how we did, all this stuff out there, and don't work that way. So I get married, and I'm bringing what I learned out
from
there
the street
inside your home,
inside my home,
right?
And it ain't working.
It's not translated.
No, it ain't translated. So I'm satisfied, but she's frustrated, which a lot of times led to arguments.
Right.
But she never denied me. And one day I'm thinking, I'm tired of, the idea is I want to make sure she's happy.
Right.
But I'm not making her happy.
You're making yourself happy.
Yes. Okay, but she's unhappy, so it's bringing me down.
Right.
Because now she is frustrated that when I approach her, she didn't say no, but it's not that joyful welcoming me. So one day I said, can I talk to you? She said, yes. I said, when it comes to our sex life, I said, I'm not satisfying you, am I? She said, you think?
Yeah, it's the bluntness from
I love her.
Oh my God.
I love her.
And she said, you think? And I said, okay. Anyway, I'm not going to use that. I said, will you do something for me? She said, I said, will you teach me how to love you? She said,
wow.
Are you going to listen? I said, I give you my word. I will. She said, okay. It took a while, but I listened to her. And once I listened to her teach me how, because I was doing things that she hated, but she didn't say nothing. She just faked it and all these things. But when she started to teach me, I said, I was doing it. She said, I hated every minute of that.
Wow.
I said, okay.
Talking about bruising your ego.
My God.
I said, well, show me and tell me what I need to do. She said, okay. And she did. And it's amazing how our intimacy changed, which included that, because I thought in our marriage that sex was the most important thing in the relationship. And she would tell me that it's not. There were times when she said, can you just hold me? I said, I can't just hold you. She said, just try it. Just, you get in bed and you're ready to go. You're 90 miles an hour. She said, just hold me. I said, I just can't do that. She said, just try. She would get frustrated. So I thought, after she's teaching me, I said, Robert, come on, let's try and hold her. Just do that. Just ignore everything else. Just hold her. Mm-hmm. I did that. And as I did that, it's amazing how her response was. And that teaching allowed me to allow her to show me a lot of things. Now it translates in the scriptures to where when I'm reading the Bible, I would ask her questions and she would tell me she was my greatest mentor and teacher. And I think that's why I mention her so much. Even now, I mention her because of the things she taught me and the way she taught me. She taught me about when you walk into a room, like we're talking about your kids. She said, when you walk in someone's presence, and if there's a darkness there, your spirit knows it. And I used to ask the queen, well, how can that happen? She said, you would just know it. So I'm in the garage one day. She's in the backyard. And I'm one of my tantrums again with God because he's not talking to me. And I'm walking back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
You talk to everybody else, but you don't talk to me. I'm just yapping. And finally I stop again. He said, I am talking to you, but you're not listening. I heard that as clear as you're talking, but it was just in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I start to scream and yell. I heard him. And Rosetta runs up from the backyard. She said, what's wrong with you? I said, I heard God talking. She said, what did he say? I said, he almost told me to shut up and listen. I said, but he did. She said, that's what I've been trying to tell you. He's always speaking to you. But we're talking so much, we're not listening.
Mm.
And Rosetta Gamble Gray was the greatest gift, aside from my salvation to him, that God ever gave me. The second thing that he gave me was great, that when she left, he allowed me to be there with her, to hold her hand.
Mm-hmm.
I will always cherish that. And to the point where that helps me to be able to be here, to be able to talk about her. And I know when I leave tonight, I'll think of 100 things that I didn't say.
Right. The beauty is you can always come back. Part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, however long it takes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. But I guess there's so much about our relationship that I learned about being a husband and being a father with her. She was, I can't get this thing in my ear, man. There you go. Okay, thank you. That I would like to be able to share with other couples, other men, just because of what she shared with me, what she taught me, allow me to lead even when I was making mistakes.
That's powerful.
That was yeah. And then when I got the revelation of knowing what she meant to me, and to listen to her and realizing why God gave her to me, it was to the point where I said, okay, now that I'm realizing what the word is really saying about me as a husband and about her as a wife, as being a helpmate for me, is taught me to be at a point where sometimes I'm a little nosy with other couples. I don't say anything, I'm just watching.
Right.
You know, it's the little things that when I was dating her, I opened the door for her. Then I got married, I stopped. And then when I finally got it, I said, I was doing this before. That representative of who I really was present.
Right.
And once I got married and settled down, the real Robert came out. So, but the representative was doing all the little tiny special things that she loved and she got used to. So I went back to those things. So what I do with my granddaughter, when she would come to the house, and my grandson, I would tell Jasmine, I said, Jasmine, when we go somewhere and get ready to get across, I said, don't move. And I told Jalen, I said, you open the door for your sister. And he would get out the car. And I got the car, opened up for Rosetta, and Jasmine was sitting in the car. And we started walking. I said, where's Jasmine? She was still sitting there. She would not move. And so I said, Jalen, Jasmine's in the car. He said, oh, Papa, I'm sorry. He go. So my point is that at this I don't know what else to do, but what God told me to do is to share this, right? Is that there's somebody that may be struggling with something as far as their relationship. We can realize that there's, especially with the men, of understanding that when the word talks about to the men, it said, love your wives as Christ loved the church. You don't see in the Bible where he says to the women to love your husband, because you all are born with that love is ingratiated in you.
And them. Yep.
Yes, it's in them, and they're just looking for that person. And a lot of times they're looking for that person, but God has someone for them, and He's telling us as we find that person, and He puts us together. And the point is that He gets in us that we are to provide, we are to take care, we are to produce, all those things like that, and we get sidetracked. So you're there to put us back on track, to say, hey, babe, you're getting over in the ditch. Let's get back over here. Right. But the point is that we have some men who think we get agitated, irritated when our wives tell us something like that. We don't like that.
Right.
And the point is that that's why you all are here for us, is to make sure that we stay on the, And
like when he doesn't want to rest, when he's tired, he wants to keep going, and I'm like, no,
exactly.
Sit down.
There you go. That's my girl.
Yep. Yesterday, she literally said, "We're going home because on Thursday we fast."
Okay.
And she said, "You're breaking your fast early today." I'm like, "Are we now?" So you're making the executive decision to break my fast early. She was like, "Yep, we're breaking the fast early, and you're gonna go take a nap." I'm like, "Okay."
That's it. They got to take care of us.
Because the provider in you guys,
yes,
sometimes won't allow you
exactly
to stop.
Yes,
you're thinking of all the things that you have to do.
You're exactly right.
And that you have to be the one to do it. I do understand, but I'm not gonna sit and watch you kill yourself.
Run yourself to the ground.
Because God wouldn't want you to do that
exactly
either.
Right. That's exactly right.
You know?
I love that.
And sometimes resting, I always say that resting is the best thing you can do. Yes. And you hear God so clearly when you rest.
That is true. And I think that's another part of where with what I do. I was telling my doctor today when she was asking me, she said, "Tell me about what you've been dealing with since you've been back here." And I said, "Well, I said, she knows I'm a pastor." And I said, I deal with practically daily. I deal with either death, sickness, people who are just struggling in their relationship, struggling with themselves. And I said, I deal with that almost every day. I said, and when I come home, it used to be the point where that was my sanctuary. My queen was there, and she would sometimes lay my head in her lap, and just soothe everything, everything go away. Not having her, it became a different kind of sanctuary, where the point where I came home after she passed was that, okay, the house is so quiet. The house was, the quietness was so loud.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to get used to that. Okay, this is my sanctuary and this is quietness. I miss the touch. I don't have the touch anymore. Now I'm in a situation where I'm taking care of my brother, and that weight is back again. And that's something that I'm struggling with right now. So, yes, I'm still married. I'll be married unless God has other plans for me, So
he's single, everybody.
well,
but y'all gotta go to special channels because we gotta vet, we gotta approve.
You're gonna be in the hot seat.
Hot seat. All right. Hot seat.
My niece over here already told me that whoever God sends, she has to come and sit down with you.
Have to.
A whole
That's
interview.
a must.
A whole interview.
That's a must. And you have to pass.
And you have to share your testimony so we know where you've been.
So we know where you've been. You know, like that's part of the vetting process. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
So much.
Thank you.
There.
There's and I wasn't texting, I promise. But I had to write my thoughts down as you're talking, so I don't forget some of these things. So we can kind of talk about them. But it's and I think about the first time I thought of you. And I told you, I didn't even think about your testimony because the Lord had dropped a topic on my spirit, and I thought of you and one other person, whom now we call our spiritual dad. And I'm sitting here listening to you talking. I'm like, Lord, but why him? Because your story is so different than the norm.
Yeah.
Usually it's like the man who's already, saved and spiritual and they're leading, but you were the opposite.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the topic that was dropped in my head and then you came into my head, I'm like, why him? It doesn't make sense. But then now I'm sitting listening. I'm like, that's a perspective that is necessary because it is the opposite. And it's like, for example, if you could walk your life backwards, then you would already know all the things where you ended up, all the things you've been through and how it started. Mm-hmm. So that's how I view your testimony in your life. It's backwards because we're so used to the man doing everything first, and yours is the women doing everything first, and you came after. Yeah. And I'm like, so that's why because we need to have both perspective. The first person I thought about would be the other way, and then you would be that way. And I'm like, wow, that makes sense. Of course it makes sense. It's him. Of course it makes sense.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah. That's literally what I'm literally asking the Lord why. And then he was like, perspective. Perspective. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think a lot of men or a lot of young men, older men, they will benefit from what you share, and they will benefit from more that you have to share. When I hear you say there's so much that your wife taught you that you'd like to share, and I'm like, yes, please share. And that's the beauty of this whole platform. I was talking to you earlier. I'm like, Lord, I'm already doing what you were asking me to do, but I didn't understand there was more to it than just, sharing with the people that's close to you and inviting other people. And now I'm like, okay, so there's more people out there that needs to hear certain things that they won't hear from their circle. They won't hear from people that they know, but they will hear it from someone who's been there, done it, and has so much more to share that they don't have to go through that.
I remember something Rosa said when I accepted Christ. We were watching TV. I'll never forget the man. He's with the Lord now. His name was Shambach. He was one of those fiery preachers, and it was on TBN. And we were laying there watching TV, and I could tell when we were looking at a preacher on TV or something, as those others are looking, she keeps glancing at me. And I could see her glance, and she just kept glancing at me. She always did that. She would glance at me to see my reaction. And I'm listening to him. And as I'm listening to him, he gets to the end, he said, he has the salvation call. And he said, don't touch that dial. Don't touch that dial. And I'm sitting there. And I always had a remote in my hand. And she's looking at me. She's looking at me. And she's waiting for me to want to turn the channel. But I just keep doing it. And finally, he starts a sinner's prayer. And I repeat it. And she's just staring at me. And then when he talked about, he said, now you're saved. I had this idea that something was going to be an explosion in me. Mm-hmm. I kept thinking it's going to be this, something's going to tell me, yeah, I'm now saved. But it was nothing.
Yep.
And she's looking at me. She's looking at me. And she just sort of turns right toward me. She said, do you know what you just did? And I said, yeah, I did. She said, okay. She said, now I give you your rightful place.
Wow.
Mm.
I said, what do you mean? She said, your rightful place. She said, I've been the head of this household for too long.
Mm.
And I didn't know what that was, taking rightful place.
Right.
She's saying it to me now. Somebody tell me, what am I supposed to do?
There's no handbook, no guidelines.
No, but she is telling me, giving me that place of what I should have had from the beginning.
Mm.
And that's when the journey started. But I got frustrated because she would say, I want you to pray. Come and pray with me. And I got so frustrated because I couldn't pray like she prayed. And I would wait at night watching TV. And she said, when you come into bed? And I said, I'll be there in a minute. I wanted to wait till she go to sleep because she would say, okay, now you pray before we go to sleep.
So you're trying to skip
I was
that
trying to
part.
wait. Yeah.
Oh man.
But what she did was the best thing for me. I said these words to her one day, and I said, you're hindering me. She said, do you know what that means? I said, why are you hindering me? She said, you have no idea what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. And so she said she went to God, and she said, God, she said, I don't know what to do. He said, leave him alone. I'll take care of him. She stopped asking me to pray. And I was saying, but the thing about it, even though she stopped asking me to pray, she still loved me.
Yeah.
She would, if I worked rotating shifts, and I would come home from work like on the night shift, morning, and I'll be on work all night. She would always get up. She said, go take a shower. I take my shower. She would bring my breakfast to me in bed. If I was on this evening shift, we would go to church, or like especially on Sundays. She would cook on Saturday, and then we would come home. I would get home, change clothes. She would have a food ready on the kitchen table. She had my lunch made. It was just all those little things, even though. So I kept waiting for her to tell me to pray or to ask me to pray. And she wouldn't. She'd just come out and give me a kiss and go on. And finally got to a point where I said, okay, Robert, you got to do something. So I'm reading the Bible, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I have a King James Version. And I'm looking at it. She said, okay, first of all, let's get you a different Bible.
I was about to say that's that will get you to quit reading.
I'm trying to figure out thee and thou. You know what I
mean? What does that even mean?
And she gets me a new King James Version Bible. Yeah. And I'm starting to rest saying, oh, this is better. So I started asking her questions about why this, why that, and things like that. And she would start to tell me. And it got so comfortable. And when I pray, I start thanking the Lord for how she was teaching me about his word. So that came to a point where I start letting down this manly idea of whatever. And it said, this woman cares for me. She loves me. She wants the best for me. And as she started to teach me, being over the altar ministry at church, little by little, she started not stepping back behind me, but she stepped back to allow me to lead. And other people at church noticed that, of how little by little, I would be out front. When our team would meet, I would always challenge our team with questions about the Bible and wild things like that. And the team would look forward to it every Sunday. So Rosetta would say to me, what are you going to talk about today? I said, why can't you talk about something? She said, no, I want you to talk about it. She said, just tell me, give me a hint what you're going to talk about today. So I would tell her when we get to church, and the other women will come and say, Pastor Rosetta, what are you going to talk about today? But our point is, I asked her, why you do that? She said, but I prayed for you. And now I see why God told me to go home. And I see what God is doing in you. She said, it makes me feel so proud that you listen. So it's just, whew.
It's a beautiful story.
I just it's her relationship with God for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
To
just
have that friendship and relationship with God
yes.
where you trust him to just do, his work. You allow him, you just step back and allow him and you listen, her not fighting with you, and I
Yes.
think the strength to love you despite, everything.
Yes.
That
Yes.
that doesn't come from her.
That-
It comes
that's
from the friendship and the relationship that she has with the
God.
Lord.
That's right.
And God keep renewing that even when she doesn't want to go home. And God is like, I got you, daughter. Go home and I'll take care of him.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing when you understand the horizontal and vertical relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because for her, she understood, I have an assignment. I have to play my part and get out of the way for
Let
God to do his.
Yes.
Because I can't do what he only can do.
Yes.
Because if she was trying to force everything on you, you wouldn't be here today. But she understood, I can love him because that's my responsibility.
Mm.
But the rest, only he can complete the rest.
Yeah.
So she literally stepped aside, focused on what her part was, and allow God to do what his part was. And for us, I think today is one of the most things that's hard to understand, because we try to get ahead of God.
Yes.
We try to put her imprint on only what God can
Yes.
do. We try to budge God to do what we want him to do at the time that we want him to do it.
Absolutely.
And if only we can literally take what she lived out. Man, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I am grateful for her life.
It's I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm grateful for her life.
I'm like,
because
I want to meet that lady.
Exactly. But she laid down a foundation that you don't see often. And I think that was a divine assignment.
Yeah.
And she literally played her part really well in literally teaching us how to be obedient even when it doesn't make sense.
And the thing about, as you're talking about that, my mind goes back to times that with the way she loved me, sometimes I was just hard. I was just sometimes nasty with my comments. And there were times when she would get really, it was righteously indignant.
Mm.
But I would say things to her and she would get so upset. And then if she said a bad word to me, the first thing I would say, oh, I thought you were a Christian.
You always had that card in your back pocket.
And she would say, I am. I love God with all my heart. She said, but you are getting on my nerves. You know what I mean? From my point, just what you're saying is that the fact that she was so obedient to love me. And again, I can't say it enough about that power behind that love. That when she talked to me, how she would just cry sometimes when she was by herself.
Mm.
But she never stopped praying for me. She never stopped praying for me. I think that I think about that all the time. This woman prayed for me, even through her pain, even through her suffering. She prayed for me. I want Robert to be saved. I want him to be saved. And she didn't quit until I can say.
I think this is a breakthrough. I think I'm gonna say this is gonna be a breakthrough for a lot of people that's listening. As a wife, or as someone who even aspire to be a wife, that's the blueprint. Because it's not always gonna line up the way we think it's gonna line up. But when it doesn't, this is how it should be done. And to hear you talk about it, to see it is possible to carry that kind of weight of love, to love somebody despite everything that they are. But you have that vision in your head that I'm gonna keep praying for him because I know how God sees him and what he can be for the Lord, and not to let anything from outside world, your relationship, the nasty comments, the nasty looks, whatever it may be. I'm not going to let this affect me. It was almost like God gave her this this love of a
Mhm.
shield.
Yes.
It's like nothing is going to get
Yes.
through, so that
Yes.
way you can pour out literally the love that I put inside of you to pour to him. And it literally led to, it's such a beautiful story. It's such a beautiful story.
I look at watching her love me. I can remember how, as time went along, as I got now close to those 12 years, of how the Holy Spirit was even working in me to the point where I would say something hateful or whatever about that, and she would cry, and I'd walk off, and I get this something inside of me would just, man, you know that wasn't right.
Right.
Not knowing what that was, I knew it was wrong.
Right.
But I wanted the person that she was when we were dating, when we got married, not knowing that God had something better for me. And he used her and to pull me. I watched everything she did. I watched the way she did it. I watched how she responded to me. I watched all of it. Even when I did something on purpose, her response to me. There were times I would say something and I'd get mad at her and she would grab me. And I said, I don't want you to touch me. And she said, I'm not going to turn you loose. And she would hold me and I would get to the point where I would start to laugh. And she would hug me. And I said, why you do that? She said, you are my husband. I married you for life. Wow. Even though I want to get rid of you.
But I know I can't.
But I can't. God says, stay here. He got a plan for you. I said, what kind of plan he got? She said, I don't know. She said, but I trust him.
That's right.
So my prayer now is that if God has somebody for me, help me not to judge them by her.
Listen, I feel bad for whoever.
Don't even come for an interview.
Don't waste your time, because I'm sorry, you will not be able to follow this.
You got big shoes.
How do you even do that?
But again, I'm listening to you talking about her, and all I can think of is the love that Christ has for us. That's what I can compare it to.
As you talk, it brings other things. One of her prayers, she talked about this all the time, was that agape love.
Yeah.
Agape love is God
kind
kind of love. And once I started to learn the word, I think to myself, well, you can't have no agape love. That's God's kind of love. Other love, the flail, man, all those things that God love. But her love from me was so close.
That's what it was.
Oh no, it was literally the definition of agape love. That's literally
because she put up with so much stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's what God is calling us to do for everybody. Not just our wives and husbands.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
It don't matter if the person is cursing at you at work. It doesn't matter if they run you over the light. It doesn't. None of that matters.
See, you don't thought about. I'm sorry. All right. I just thought about an incident just to show what you are. All right. I had an incident working at Michelin. I prided myself on when I worked every place I have that I had a great relationship with the company. Never got any written warnings or none of those things. So one day, I worked in quality control at Michelin, and I came home on a long weekend, I had a 4-day break. On a Saturday, I get a phone call. I'm outside cutting grass. Rosetta comes to the side door and she gets my attention. She says, your supervisor's on the phone. And I said, oh, okay. So I wonder what he wants. I get there. He said, listen, man. He said, I want to give you a heads up. He said, somebody reported you as falsifying documents. I said, what? Me falsifying documents? I said, what are you talking about? And I wish he wasn't supposed to let me know that, but he was trying to give me a heads up, but it just destroyed my weekend. I couldn't wait to get back to work. So I said, what is someone saying I actually did? But he couldn't tell me that. He just says I've been reported for, and that's a termination offense.
Yep.
So I get back to work and I call, which is the manager of the whole department. And she said, who told you about that? I said, Jim did. She said, he wasn't supposed. She said, okay. She said, yeah, you reported for that. She said, I went to HR. She said, HR told me that I was an excellent, exemplary employee. There's never been a complaint about him anywhere. And they said, as far as we're concerned, it's, she said, I would like to have an explanation for that. But what they saw, it was a husband and wife that her husband worked in another department, and as I worked in that, I was checking a certain amount of tires that came through, and sometimes the machine would break down that's bringing the tires through, and I would check 25 on each post. So what I would go up and do when I get there is they coming through, I'm going to write 25 on there. And when they come through, I put a little mark, man. Well, the assembly line was going to be down for a little bit. So I said, well, let me go to the other ones to get them. I'll come back. She walked up when she saw me leave and looked at my paperwork. I had 25 on there, even though I had not checked 25.
Right.
But she didn't know I was coming back to do it. So she took the carbon copy
and reported
that I was falsifying that. So once I explained it to my manager, she said, listen, she said, I'm going to tell you who did it. I thought they were my friends. I really, truly did. And when she said, I said, well, what's my standing? She said, you fine, going back to work. She said, but watch your back. I said, okay. So I get home and I call Rosetta and I tell her I am angry. These people trying to mess with my livelihood.
Yep.
I am so angry. Rosetta said, Robert, calm down. Calm down. She said, when you come home, we need to talk. I couldn't get through my shift. Oh my goodness. I get home and she sat me down and she grabbed my cheeks like this here. She said, I want you to listen to me. She said, when you go back to work tomorrow, she said, I want you to speak to them. I said, no. She said, Robert. She said, the word says God will take care he will take care of that. She said, he'll take care of it. She said, I want you to be as pleasant as you can. I said, Rosetta, I can't do it. She said, you have to. She said, you don't have a choice. Wow. I said, do you realize what you're asking me to do? She said, yes.
Yeah.
She said, so when you see Mike and I can't remember her name right now. It's been so long ago. She said, just speak to him. When I went back to work, the first person Patty, doesn't it? First person I ran into was Patty. I said, hey, Patty, how you doing? She looked at me like, oh my goodness. And she must have called her husband. So he came through, I was on the platform checking tire. He came through and he's looking. I said, hey, Mike, how are you? And he just threw up his hand, walked out. And at that point, there's peace came over me. And I knew what Rosetta meant.
Yeah.
I called her. I said, you know something? I said, when I spoke to them, I said, the guilt and things on them. She said, I told you.
Yep.
They even went to HR to ask them why was I still there. They said, and they told him he didn't do nothing wrong.
Wow.
3 years after that, her daughter became very ill. And I heard about it. And she had been put on another shift. And I saw her come in. And I said, Patty, I said, I heard about your daughter. I said, do you mind if I pray for her? And she just burst into tears. So I took her into the lab in my office in there, and I prayed for her daughter. Every day she would come in, she would find me. And she told me one day, she said, I am surprised that you would even think about praying for my daughter after what we did to you. And I said, yeah, it hurt me. I said, but it's not about that. I said, you're hurting. Your daughter is sick. And she said, thank you so much for praying. And I thought about what Rosetta had made me do. So it's little things like that that she,
Yep.
okay. I said, y'all keep talking and I keep thinking of other things.
And this is how God wants us to operate on this earth, so people can see him through us.
Yes.
Yes. Perfectly
Man.
said, yes.
Listen,
Okay.
this is what's gonna happen. Because I'm looking at my, before this camera overheats on me. Okay. It would be unfair for me to ask the question and rush your answers. And usually, when I'm editing and I listen to your testimony again, the Holy Spirit will drop questions into my spirit and I'll write them down.
Okay.
So we're gonna do a part 2 of this.
Okay.
Where it's gonna have questions and you're just gonna answer them.
I love that.
Okay.
I love that.
And then we'll have other episodes where you're gonna bless us with the things that you've learned from your wife. Such a great, so far, besides one of the greatest mentor. I didn't know her, but I love her.
Seriously.
And I truly mean that though. I'm grateful for
I'm
her
watching
life.
this movie. He's talking, I'm watching the movie.
Yep,
I'm like
I'm grateful
watching
for
their
her life.
lives.
Because I don't think, and I'm gonna say this, I don't think I've ever heard
That perspective.
one, also such love.
Yeah.
I've seen my parents are about to go in 40 years of marriage. I've seen that type of love, but they didn't have to go through what you went through. That just showed me a different level of love. And
Wow,
and
I
I'm
thought of it that
grateful.
way.
I'm grateful to hear that, because sometimes we like to think we've arrived. Uncle Tony told me once, and I was telling him something similar, and he said his math teacher told him one time, if you think you've arrived, you haven't left your house.
I like that.
Because I love my wife.
Yes, I know.
Like,
yes.
you don't understand. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting
Good.
here thinking about, like that love that she has for you. And I'm like, if I were put in that position, would I love her the way she loved you? And that to me is motivation. It's an aspiration to get to that point.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have 5 minutes.
I think of I think of now a lot of younger couples that are going through similar situations where like their husband are not the spiritual leader that they want them to be, and because of that the marriage is just like not the way it's supposed to be, and some of them are frustrated and some of them are being mistreated by their husband.
Mhm.
and and it's sad that for some of them the outcome is like, we got to get a divorce or we got to be separated because I can't do it, right? And to hear that there's someone that went through something similar but she stayed.
Yes, she did.
Not
She
only
could have
stayed,
gone
but
she could have gone
loved.
she could have gone to be with Christ early with no suffering, and she asked to stay and pray.
Yes.
And then went that part for me is just like, if you're listening, when you're watching this, if you didn't get anything,
Literally,
that part is just the whole thing.
it's the whole thing.
That's
I remember in the summertime out in the backyard, there's a swing I have out there, and I put a patio, and that would be her place to go out and pray every morning. I would wake up in the morning and I would over here and okay, she's out there praying. I'll get up and look out the window and she's out there praying. If she wasn't there, anyway, downstairs, I put a floor, a heating tile there, like in the wintertime. So she would have the tile would be warm and she'd always be there. And I could hear her praying. I'll get up in the morning. And when I was as a healing part, I would close the door so I wouldn't hear her praying. But she was praying, and sometimes I would stand and listen, and she would always call my name. always called my name and in tears. And I remember one day she was in the den area, and I got up and to go past her in the kitchen, and I walked, and she's had a blanket or something over her shoulders, and she's on her knees, and she's praying, and I walked by and I touched her like this here, and I called her name. I interrupted her prayer, and she turned and she looked at me and she said, "Why you do that?" She said, "You know I'm praying." And it was just aggravating things that I did, And when she got through, she would get up, and I'm thinking, okay, she's gonna be mad at me now. She'd come in, she'd give me a kiss, and she said, "What you want for breakfast?"
Mm.
That's a
You're like, how do you do that?
yeah. I'm just that's what I'm thinking. How do you do that? But she just, oh my goodness,
Beautiful.
So much.
So much.
yes, okay.
I have two last thoughts, and I don't want you talking.
Yeah.
We're gonna save everything for part 2 because every time we say something, I'm like, I don't want this to cut off.
Yours heard that and saw that.
Two last thoughts, okay? And
Yes.
the last one is really a question for you. It's very short answer. But as you're saying that last thing you're saying, what came to my mind is, it's not that it didn't hurt. It's not that she wasn't hurting. It's not like she never cried. It's not like she was never in pain because she was going through all that because you weren't there yet. But she did all that with Christ.
Mm.
So whatever it is that in your marriage that seems like it's unsettling, find a way to still love, but cry with Christ because you will find the peace that he promised in that. I'm done with that.
Okay.
The last question
Okay.
I have, one question.
Okay.
If you had to name this episode, what would it be?
Mm.
I do that with my guests because sometimes, with the guests, I don't get a topic unless I do get a topic. But when it comes to your testimony, it's your testimony.
Mhm.
So if you were to give this episode a title, what would you name it? And whatever it is, that's what it will be.
The power of her love.
The power of her love. There you have it. The power of her love. All right. Well,
I'm not gonna say anything.
Nope.
I just thought of something else, but I'm gonna keep it. Okay.
Let the men talk.
You got
You're the guest. You
5
can say
minutes.
you
Go
can
ahead.
say it. Go
You
ahead.
got 5 minutes.
Oh, all right. I just remember when you talk about when she's trying to talk to me about the fact of calling on God, that He's always there. He's always listening, and during that time when I was questioning that, I don't see how because where I grew up, there was nothing about that. It was just a preacher preaching, screaming, hollering, and I don't have no idea what he talked about after. But she told me, because she would have these visions sometimes of the events. She said she was at home, I was at work. And she said she was in the bedroom and she was praying. She was praying in tongues, and she walked through. And she said in the side door, from our bedroom, you could look straight through, past down the hallway and out the side door. She said there was a dark figure walked in as she was praying. And she says it walked in, she walked toward it. She said she didn't say anything. She just grabbed it. And she said the fight ensued. They went out the door into the driveway. And she said to me, she said, all that time I wondered where you were.
Mm.
I said, wonder. She said, I kept saying to myself, where's Robert? Why can he come and help me? She said, people were driving down the street, but nobody was stopping and help her. She said, finally it went away. And she said, and Jesus said, not one time did you call my name.
Mm.
She said, that was a part of her teaching, to call him in every area.
Mm.
She
Wow.
said, don't you ever, I don't care what situation you get in, don't you ever forget to call his name.
Mm.
She said, all that time I'm calling your name. I'm looking at neighbors, everybody. They said every people in the yard, but nobody will come to my defense. And so when they got through, it's like Jesus took it away, and Jesus said, not one time did you call my name. She said, don't you ever forget what I just told you. So there's oh my goodness.
Oh, don't you worry.
Oh, we're
We'll
gonna
unpack.
we're gonna get through them. Don't you worry.
We'll unpack.
The power of her love. You look like you have a last
I have
thought.
a last. Listen, I gotta give it to my auntie. I'm sorry. Her story, her dedication, and her love for you saved your life.
Yes.
But her story is gonna save so many marriages.
I truly believe that because when I asked God, what do I do with my pain? He said, share it.
I remember you told us that.
Yes.
And that was your confirmation. I couldn't believe you said that. And I was like, that's the difference when the Lord already made provision. Sometimes we know people. When the Lord first asks you to do something, you want to go to the closest people you know.
Yes.
Because you want to make it happen.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm gonna choose.
That's so true. Yes.
I'm gonna choose.
Yes.
So when you said that to us that day, I was like, I looked at my wife, I was like, wow, that's the second person, the first guest and you. When I brought it up to you and said, this is what your response was, the confirmation was so clear, you couldn't make it up. Share your pain. And he's given me the platform, and here you are, and literally blessing us. And by us, I mean everybody who's going to be listening. And I truly believe what you said, because we don't see that. We don't see that anymore. I've seen love, true love. My parents, I'm living it with my wife. But man, the aspiration to get to that level, I'm telling you right now, I'm like, yo, I want to, from this day forward, okay? If I thought that I had arrived of loving my wife, I haven't left my house yet.
I mean, it's vice versa.
And I'm gonna starting tonight, aspire to be what she was to you. So thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Story.
You have a beautiful, and I cannot wait to, man, y'all better get ready, because this might be like part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6, part 7,
they're gonna be the one asking Uncle Rabbit to come back.
More. And I'm excited, and I can't wait. So I want to say thank you, because I don't want you to be driving home late.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. It's literally about to be 10 p.m. Because I could have paused and then we could have come back in 30 minutes. But I'm like, I'm not going to do that to you, because you're going to come back. But I really hope this was a blessing to you guys. Yeah. I'm full. I really am. I'm full. And I thank you, because, and I always say this to people. Here I am talking again. I always say that your yes is the key to someone's deliverance. Your yes to come here to share that is going to deliver so many people. If you had said no to this call, you would have literally hold up so many deliverance that you don't even know about. But because you said yes, people are going to go back and go to God and pray, how do I love my wife? How do I love my husband? How do I carry that love so I don't get a divorce? How do I love so that when my kids don't have to go through a unbalanced house with no men in their lives, no father figure and all that stuff? Everything you just shared is gonna push somebody to Christ.
Yeah.
And this is the whole point of this platform. And I thank God, I glorify him for dropping you into my spirit. And I thank him for your yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I didn't expect this reaction.
What a gift.
Your
story is truly a gift.
And listen, I'm full. I'm full. And I can't wait to get fuller. But in the meantime, I'm going to say shout out to all our testifiers that made it this far. We hope this was a blessing to you, and we're going to continue to pray so the Lord can continue to provide provision like you to come and bless you guys, because it is at a time, yes, and us, that is needed, and we need to go back to the beginning and understand how God loves us, so that way we can love others.
Lord, help me as we're ending this session, as my nephew is talking, there are other things being dropped in my spirit and my mind of that I need to share. But if just help me to remember those things when I come back.
Write them down. The Lord told me to tell you to write them down.
The Lord
The
told me
Lord
to tell
told me to
you.
tell you.
One
to
thing
write
else
them
to
down.
know. There's a picture that someone took of me and Rosetta at church, and we're worshiping, and she's laying on my shoulder with the hand up my arm, and they took that. It's a beautiful picture, and I don't like pictures of myself, but that picture's, and I'm gonna look for it.
Mhm.
But the point is that I realized is how many people watched us and told us about that. It just okay, all right,
I'm writing my thoughts down.
all right. So,
But yeah, y'all, this is it. I wish we didn't have to end this. So this is what we're gonna do. For all you guys who are watching, you're gonna help me pray so the Lord send us financial resources so I could get a camera that records unlimited without stopping, because
yes,
this should have continued. And because it's late, again, I could stop this and we can come back in 30 minutes, but I'm not going to do this to you because I don't want you to be driving at night.
Yeah, I need to go home.
Exactly. Okay. So we're gonna reconvene for part 2, and then for as many parts as the Lord allows. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Wow.
Thank you all for inviting me. I am overjoyed to be able to share. I am overjoyed of how you have received me. Not just uncle and niece, just here on this platform. So thank you. And I'll be honored to come back.
And we can't wait.
Okay.
We can't wait. We can't wait.
I'll be jotting things down.
Yes, so. Please do, so you don't leave out anything. But I'm also going to believe the Holy Spirit will recall everything to you, because he does that for us.
Yes. Okay.
We're going to believe for that.
Okay.
Yo, this is it. If you've made it this far and this has been a blessing to you, as always, please share it with someone that you know will benefit from it, so it can help them in their faith and their walk with the Lord, because this is what this is all about. So if you were blessed by this content, please subscribe for more, because we are believing for provision so the Lord can continue to bring people to bless you.
Yes.
And with that, we are out. So peace.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
What's up, y'all? If you're a testifier or just someone who rocks with us and this platform has been a blessing and encouraging you in any way, please subscribe to our channel for more contents like this. We encourage you to share our videos and also follow our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And be sure to give us a follow on our IG and TikTok page at Testimony and Blessings Pod. We love you and we appreciate you. Peace.